With reinforcements possibly on the way, can the Denver Broncos take down an AFC West rival to get back to 500? Coming up tonight on Broncos Weekend, we'll discuss how a few players designated to return from IR could impact the Broncos' Monday Night Football matchup with the Chargers. Then we'll look back on a few key plays from over the first 5 weeks that could be successful against the Chargers and point out a few plays the Broncos will have to limit in order to leave SoFi Stadium with the dub. Broncos Weekend starts right now. I cannot believe it is already week 6. This season is flying by, and I'm so glad to have Steve Atwater and Big O here to discuss what we've seen so far and what we'd like to see less of in the future, specifically the very near future as the Broncos head to LA to take on the Chargers on Monday Night Football. We will get to the film here in just a little bit, but first, the Broncos are sitting at 2-3 on the season, and they just haven't put up the offensive numbers we thought we'd see. Earlier this week, Coach Hackett was asked what he sees as the biggest issue for the offense this season, and this is what he had to say.
Negative plays. I think that's been kind of one of our nemesises. We've been really good in some explosive passes down the field. I think we're pretty high up there in the league, and we have some really good explosive. We're really feast or famine, and it's in the red zone, and it's in the middle of the field. The amount of get back on tracks we have is just too difficult. We need to be way more efficient on first down, getting positive yards, and even just incompletions instead of sacks or penalties. So I think those are the things that we're focusing on, trying to narrow down the things that we want to be great at, and then continually develop in those.
Guys, Coach Hackett cites negative plays as the Achilles heel for this offense, but looking at the film and things that you guys have seen, what do you think is the biggest issue right now?
It's the timing. You know, as an offensive player, I tell people this all the time. Everybody wonders what we did in 2012 when Peyton Manning got here. It was the hardest training camp that I've ever been a part of, and that was the mental aspect of it. From day one, he started making the ones take almost double the reps that everybody would take on the team. And the reason why he did that was to get the timing down, but yet it still took 5.5 games in order for this offense to start clicking. With Nathaniel Hackett, it was a little bit different. You're bringing in a new offensive system, a new quarterback, you're bringing in new terminology, and then, oh, by the way, now in training camp, we're going to have a lot more rest days to try to get guys healthy and get guys through the season. So I always knew that this offense was going to struggle, and we're seeing it. So you got to continue just to rep it, drill it, trust the process, and hopefully they'll turn this thing around sooner than later.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that was the one thing I was going to say more than anything is just, getting everybody on the same page, making sure Russ Wilson and the receivers are on the same page, that the timing is down. We've seen the timing be off a few times, and we see both receivers, both Cortland and Montreal Washington, in the same area. That shouldn't happen. That's not supposed to happen. But again, I'm like you. I'm hoping we're going to get that worked out here. Some of the early kinks worked out here. But another thing that I've seen is, from time to time, how offensive lineman is blocking this guy, and then he comes off, and then guess what? His offensive lineman comes off of him and goes and make the tackle. You got to play to the whistle. Yep. Every single person on that field, you got to go until you hear that whistle blow. Otherwise, you have a chance to ruin a good play. Yep.
Well, there is no better time than now to get this corrected. Heading into this week up against a divisional offensive powerhouse in the Los Angeles Chargers, they rank 5th in total yards, 2nd in passing yards per game. So for someone who hasn't seen the Chargers play a single game this season, Big O, how would you describe their offense?
Explosive. Keenan Allen is one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League. When I got to the Chargers in 2015, Phillip Rivers talked about he's one of 3 guys that can beat man-to-man coverage 100% of the time. Doesn't matter what cornerback is out there. But he's only played 2 quarters of football for this Chargers offense. This Chargers team has won without him. So they will spread the ball around. They will have a crazy run game. Austin Eckler went for 160 plus this past week, right? So we know what they're trying to do. If you're the Broncos, though, and he's Evero, it's a tough task, but you have to find a way to make this team one-dimensional.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest difference between the Chargers right now and the Denver Broncos, the Chargers, they're scoring touchdowns.
Right.
I think in every game except for the game that they played against Jacksonville, they've scored 3 or more touchdowns, and that's huge. And, for us, we're going to be looking from the sidelines. Hopefully, we'll be matching them point for point, but kind of envious of like, man, we got to get in the end zone as well. And they do. You're right. They have a lot of talent. Keenan Allen, we don't know if he's going to play yet or not. And then they got Mike Williams out there on the outside, big, strong wide receiver, former number 1 draft pick, and Justin Herbert, one of the greatest quarterbacks in the league right now, throwing to him. Austin Eckler. They have so many weapons, and they utilize those weapons. They get the ball to their playmakers, and their playmakers are making plays.
I think not enough is said about how Justin Herbert will disperse that football.
Yes.
Right? Everybody thinks that, I'm going to lock into Keenan Allen or I'm going to lock into Mike Williams. No. I've seen games this year where Mike Williams had 1 catch for 12 yards, right? But yet they're still having success. And that is a credit to Brandon Staley with the system that he's designed, but also that young quarterback understanding I have to scan the field and not key into one person and disperse the football the right way.
Well, like you said, the Broncos need to make this Chargers offense one-dimensional. They're without cornerback Ronald Darby, but they could be getting Justin Simmons, Michael Ojemudia back. We saw Caden Stearns ball out against the Colts. So how can the Broncos utilize all of these pieces on the defensive side of the ball in order to really limit what they can do through the air?
I think they're going to need to utilize them. And all of the Chargers wide receivers, they're 6'1" or tall, except for one. They have one who's under 6 feet. But these are some larger guys that they're very good with running after the catch. And so we're going to need Caden Stearns to contribute. We're going to need Damari Mathis. Obviously, Pastor Tan. I would imagine if Keenan Allen plays, he may be on him. But either way, it's going to be a tough duo. Even if he's on Mike Williams and Keenan Allen doesn't play, he's still going to have his hands full. But man, they have a lot of weapons on offense. They make things happen, and our defense is going to have their hands full.
To piggyback what Steve said, for me, it's about the violence. I know I come up here every single week. I might be offensive lineman. Steve, you laid some big hits back in your day, but I love the violence of football. But these cornerbacks, Pastor Tain, if you're going to be pressing these guys this week, you have to jam them in the line of scrimmage. You can't allow guys to have clean releases. So it's all about the violence factor of this week, and you're going to deliver those body blows after body blows. And in the fourth quarter, one team will concede, and I hope it's not the Broncos.
Yeah, the Chargers running back Austin Eckler. He is very tough to defend. Just ask the Browns. I think they gave up 173 yards to him on the ground on Sunday. So how does Denver limit Austin Eckler this week?
Well, you can't arm tackle because he's a guy, when you look at him, you may think that, hey, this guy, he can't run me over. But guess what? He can.
Yes.
He's run over linebackers. He run through the tackle of defensive linemen. He's run through many defensive backs tackles. So we got to make sure that we bring in everything we have and do not underestimate Austin Eckler. Not only can he run the ball, he's a great receiver out of the backfield. He knows this offense well, and he's a force to be reckoned with. So I think we'll come to the game with the right mentality, though, seeing as though we gave up the yardage that we gave up to Josh Jacobs a couple weeks ago. We got to come in ready to go because Austin Eckler, he can do the same thing to us if we let him.
Yeah, it's all about doing your job. You know, that's the thing that the Chargers do really, really well. Austin Eckler will take that backside cutback lane where he goes for 71 yards last week. But also what the Chargers will do, they'll do a play fake and he'll get lost going in the front side, and now they'll throw him the football. So it's about keying in to your keys defensively, understanding how you fit in this defense, and not trying to make the big highlight play, just make your plays when they come to you. If you're responsible for that backside C-gap as a safety, you better be in that backside C-gap, because last week the Browns didn't do it. And guess what? Eckler went for 71 yards on that play.
And I would say the safety from the Cleveland Browns, he took a really bad angle. So you got to make sure your angles are on point. We've done that a couple of games too, where our safety, we didn't take a great angle, and we paid the price for it basically. Yeah. So taking good angles is a good part of it as well.
What is the number one key matchup that you're keeping your eye on this Monday night?
Pat Surtain, Keenan Allen. I want to see how much times Pat Surtain is on him. PS2, you got to do what you do. I know that you have went out there and had success. Devontae Adams, right? I thought PS2 played a heck of a game this past week against Michael Pittman Jr. when you played against the Colts. A heck of a game. But now, Keenan Allen, like I said, Phillip Rivers told me day one of the 3 receivers in the National Football League that could beat man-to-man coverage every single time. I think that this is the biggest test for PS2 up to date.
And you think about just Keenan Allen's mindset. He's got that dog mentality, like, I'm going to dominate you. He's going to talk noise. He's going to do all those things to try to get you out of your game. But I figured you would take that one. So my matchup, I took Melvin Gordon and Derwin James. I cannot wait to see Melvin hit that hole and see what Derwin James can do, because Derwin James is a great safety, one of the greatest safeties in the game right now. And Melvin Gordon, great running back, very physical. So I'm anxious to see what's going to happen when they meet up in the hole.
Since you want to be a homer, you want to talk about the safety position, let's talk about Calvin Anderson going against Khalil Mack.
Ooh, yes.
Right? You know, Khalil's a very experienced pass rusher, and Calvin Anderson has a unique opportunity. Last week, when Garrett Bowles went down with that leg injury, Calvin Anderson stepped in with ice in his veins and was the most solid player on that offensive line for the Broncos when he had to play those limited snaps. And by the way, he was a guy that all offseason was playing right tackle.
That's right.
So to see him go in there and handle business, I cannot wait to see him take another step forward this week against a great pass rusher like Khalil Mack.
What do you know about Calvin Anderson in terms of being on the right side and the left side? Does he have a preference?
So Calvin's my boy, right?
Yes.
Calvin's my boy. I've been rooting for Calvin from day one. He's a better left tackle than right tackle.
Okay.
It looks more natural. It's more comfortable. He shoots his hands better. He's not out of whack. He's a lot more comfortable, a lot more fluid at the left tackle position.
That's good news for the Broncos then this week.
Right.
Coming up after the break, we'll look at a few offensive plays that we've seen from the Broncos this season that we would like to see more of starting this week at SoFi. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Broncos Weekend, everyone. So far this season, the Broncos offense has captured headlines for all the wrong reasons, averaging 15 points per game with the league's worst red zone percentage. While I've seen this offense struggle with self-inflicted wounds this season, there have been a number of promising plays that Steve and Orlando feel like they should be implementing as this team looks to find their stride. So let's start with the big play from week 1. 5:46 left in the first half. It's 3rd and 2. Guys, what worked so well on this play?
Well, it's an empty backfield, and for offenses, they know not every defensive back or every linebacker can cover really good man-to-man. And most of the time, if you're not in a zone defense, you're in some type of man-to-man coverage. And once we broke the huddle and saw that these guys were man-to-man, guess what? Somebody's going to get lit up. And ended up being the slot corner who was covering Jerry Jeudy. He had outside leverage, and he let Jerry get to his outside, and Russ just threw a beautiful pass. It was a little underthrown, but Jerry Jeudy made the adjustment on it, slowed up a little bit, and then he just showed his dynamic speed.
So just like C said, a little bit underthrown, but I like those because that's a very easy way to get that pass interference call. So at the very least, if you're not going to catch this football, you're going to come away with a pass interference, be able to now come back, have body control, and try to jump through that slot receiver. I love the fact that it was 3rd and 2, but yet Russell Wilson decided to go deep, understanding coverage. The thing that I really love is the fact that Jerry Jeudy, on this specific play, week 1, whole world is watching, he tells a lie with his body. He lets the slot receiver believe that I am going to go inside. So now the slot receiver has his butt faced to the sidelines. And if that happens, it's now very easy for Jerry Jeudy to create outside leverage. And that slot receiver has to open up completely. With a guy like Jerry Jeudy, you're going to have that speed and be able to create that separation. And that's why it becomes a big play now. And Russell sees it, obviously, throws it to Jerry Jeudy, and you got to strike up the band because that is 6 right there.
That's right.
Let's fast forward to week 4, Broncos in Vegas, and this was really the offense's most productive day so far this season. Let's look at a couple of plays that actually happened back to back, starting with the deep ball to KJ Hamler that put Denver on the doorstep. It's safe to say KJ Hamler needs to be more involved.
Yeah, most definitely. And it started with great blocking by the offensive line. Most big plays always start with the offensive line.
I'm glad.
You guys doing your thing up front.
Let them know, Steve. Let them know.
And the tight end got a nice chip on the edge guy there. And then, hey, the DB didn't realize that KJ Hamler was in the game, and KJ Hamler is a burner.
Yes.
When you line up across from KJ Hamler, you got to take a couple steps back because he's about to take one to the house if you don't cover him properly, and that's exactly what happened. He just outran the coverage. The guys didn't know what to do, got turned around, and Russ put that one right on the money. It should have been a touchdown, but KJ, still, I don't know if he's 100%, maybe 90, 95, 96%. Couldn't keep his balance there to go into the end zone.
So pre-snap read, what you see is 2 safeties high, right? They're in their 2 shell right here. But you also have that cornerback that's playing off coverage on KJ Hamler, and you better play off coverage on KJ Hamler because he runs 4-2, right? What KJ does an exceptional job of eating up that grass space in between him and that cornerback. But once he eats up that space, he gives a little head and shoulder to the outside where he gives the illusion of stacking that cornerback. So now that safety has to overcommit. And then what does KJ do? Shave it out the top, and Russell Wilson lets him go and get it, right? So this is just a great all-around play that Russ is trusting KJ Hamler that he's going to eat up that grass space in between him and the corner. He's trusting that I'm going to move the safety, the backside safety, with my eyes with Russell Wilson. So KJ has to trust Russell Wilson to do that. And oh, by the way, like you said, you got to trust the offensive line and the tight ends that everybody's going to block it. But KJ Hamler is going to make that play 10 out of 10 times if you give him the opportunity. But it had to go really well. And Russ did a heck of a job of looking off the safety.
10 out of 10 times. So does that mean it will be successful this week in LA if they decide to run it?
Absolutely. I think that's why we're talking about it, right? These are plays that we want more of here in Broncos country.
Yeah, well, on the very next play, Russell Wilson in the shotgun, no huddle on this play. He keeps it and runs it in himself for a touchdown. Why was that play so effective, Big O?
Well, first of all, this is my favorite play. So, guys, if we get anywhere in between the 5 and the goal line, this is the play that should be up. This zone read. So Russell Wilson's very easy read, right? Where you're going to back off, you're going to see what that defensive end does. Cam Chancellor bends. Now you know you have an opportunity to take it out the back gate, right? If you're Russell Wilson, but it's successful because of how far that safety is. And Russell knows that I have to beat him with the legs. What I would like to see the Broncos start doing is add a third layer to that, where now you go, instead of being in a 3-by-1 set, now we could get into a 2-by-2 set, and we could run a natural pick play with 2 wide receivers and create some more off that package. So not only was this a good initial play, you could build so much things moving forward and just different layers of it to create touchdowns as well.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that except for the key to that play was Russell Wilson got to the line of scrimmage, saw how deep the safety was. When you're in the red zone, you shouldn't be 8 yards deep in the end zone. You need to be 2 or 3 yards deep, regardless of what formation or how wide the wide receivers are. So if he would have been a little bit closer, that may have been a different outcome for that play, and Russ may have checked to a different call. But once he saw that safety so deep, he knew it was a go, and he made the play. It was just a great play and great read.
While there weren't a ton of highlights from the Thursday night football matchup against the Colts, this was one of them. Russell Wilson to Cortland Sutton and Montreal Washington for a 51-yard gain. Why is this something that the Broncos should be implementing this week against the Chargers?
Again, great protection. I love the concentration by both Cortland Sutton and Montreal Washington. I don't like the fact that they were in the same area, but no less, good pass. I'm not sure who he was actually passing it to. If I had to guess, I would say Cortland Sutton. I would say Montreal Washington was probably in the wrong space there. But yeah, great job with Cortland, just concentrating on the ball, going up, high pointing it, and fighting for it. Once you come to the ground, he feels some other hands on it. Hey, you got to pull that thing in and secure it.
Yeah, big boy football, right? I mean, be the bully and don't get bullied at the end of the day. Cortland Sutton, and you are a freakish athlete. There's a reason why we have continued to talk about these 50-50 balls being 75-25% your way. And there's a reason why when the Broncos get in the red area, Russell Wilson's looking for 14 because he makes those plays. So more of those, more trust, and more of those type of route schemes, right? We saw last week the big crossing route and things like that. Where if Cortland's an outside receiver, throw it up there. Let him go high point it. Let him use that athletic ability to go get 7 for you.
All right, guys, if you could ask this offense to do one thing this week, what would it be, Big O?
Have a 100-yard rusher, right? Whether it's Latavius Murray or Melvin Gordon. You have to find a way, and I know Melvin Gordon's going to be juiced up as well, right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So if I'm Nathaniel Hackett, I'm trying to give him the ball as much as possible. He wants to prove those people back where with the Chargers and the LA that they were wrong for letting them go and moving on with Austin Eckler. So for me, it's all about running the ball effectively, because when you run the ball effectively, that's when you get the 8-man boxes. That's when it becomes so much more easier to throw this football and have those big explosive days. So stick to the game plan, run the ball, let these offensive linemen go forward rather than backwards. If I'm Calvin Anderson, I'm praying, like, please, let me go forward against Khalil Mack rather than backwards as much as possible. So it would be a 100-yard rusher for me.
Yeah, and all throughout training camp and all offseason, what have we been talking about? Outside zone run. We haven't been running outside zone run as much as we need to, because guess what? That's going to set up play action pass. It's going to set up boosts. It's going to set up everything else we got to get back to that outside zone. I don't know why they stopped running it. Do you know why they stopped running it?
I have no idea why they stopped running it, but I can tell you this. Against Indianapolis, it was 5 plays. 5 plays. That makes absolutely no sense. When you do look at the boots, when you do look at the play action, when you do look at all these explosive plays, this offense is based off of every run has a pass that comes off of it. So Nathaniel Hackett hasn't been doing the best job of implementing that, where now I'm going to run this play, I'm going to run this play a little bit more, and then, oh my goodness, here we go. I'm going to try to go get 70 yards in the air off of this play. So I'm right there with you, Steve.
Yeah, because linebackers, they just attracted to it. You know, when they fake that boot, I don't care if they're run or pass, they got to bite up on it, and guess what? It's going to leave a little bit of space back behind them to complete those passes. So I like to see us get back to that.
All right, guys, well, still to come here on Broncos Weekend, we'll break down what makes the Chargers offense so efficient and point out what Denver's defense will need to key in on this week in order to get a much-needed win over a divisional rival. Welcome back inside the Broncos Media Center. I'm Alexis Perry with Big O and Steve Atwater. You guys, it is another primetime football matchup for the Denver Broncos, who are getting set to head to SoFi Stadium to face the LA Chargers on Monday Night Football. Justin Herbert, even with fractured rib cartilage and without his wide receiver 1 or starting left tackle, still ranks 7th in QBR and is averaging the 2nd most passing yards per game. So this is going to be a true test for this Denver defense this week. So let's take a look at some of the biggest plays that helped the Chargers get their Week 5 win over the Browns and point out some of the ways the Broncos can limit them this week. So let's pick things up with 4:01 left in the first quarter. We talked about how good Austin Eckler is, and he showed it on the 71-yard run. Guys, what can Denver's defense learn from this play?
Well, first off, the safety has to adjust when that motion comes over. You have to adjust and slide over some versus staying so far over to the left side trying to disguise the defense. And then when the run happened, he took a very bad angle. You know, you got to come inside out at a good angle to make sure you can make that tackle. And the only way you can get that down is by practicing over and over and over again. And then also, both inside linebackers, the inside linebacker was slow to react. And then on the outside, 2 guys ended up going outside and nobody was inside. One of those guys was supposed to be on the inside. Either the inside linebacker or the edge guy was supposed to be on the inside, but they didn't get there. And guess what? You had to pay for it.
Do your job. Right, Steve? I mean, you've played defense for many, many years. You've looked at what the Broncos have tried to implement over the last couple years. I think Isha Ever has got these guys going in the right direction, but it all comes down to doing your job. Austin Eckler is able to rip off 71 yards because the backside safety takes a poor angle, like you said, but he's responsible for that backside cutback. I know it's full flow. I know that you want to cheat over. I know you want to go try to make that huge play, but you're responsible for that backside cutback. And if you're not right, and you have those dirty eyes, it turns into a 71-yard gain. So it's all about doing your job and not trying to do too much. Trust that, hey, if that ball stays front side, that the front side safety is going to make the play, or the DN or somebody else. That's not your job to get over the top. Right. It's all about just understanding how you fit in the run gap integrity lanes and making sure that if you're responsible for that backside C gap, that you're there and you're not, cheating and having those dirty eyes and trying to run over the top.
You think that ever happened in practice where their safety was cheating to one side and should have been over there?
Absolutely. Look at the running backs that they have, right? And they have Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. Those guys are going against 2 premier running backs in this league. But what happens with that run game in Cleveland? It's typically full flow. They don't normally cut that thing back. So I think because of practice, because of those things, that's why you're cheating over the top. Yeah. Where with the Broncos, what we've seen, it might work into their favor. Last week, they only ran 5 outside zone plays. So you should be keyed in to the fact that this thing might cut back, right? And I'm not going full flow. I'm not trying to get over the top to be able to make those plays and limit those explosive run plays.
Well, guys, at the top of this segment, I mentioned just how good Justin Herbert has been, but I think without a guy like Mike Williams, that wouldn't be the case so much this year. So let's actually pick things up. 17 seconds left in the first. Herbert connected with him for a 38-yard gain. How can the Broncos keep Herbert from making plays like that?
Well, I don't think you're going to stop him from making all of the plays, especially when you have a receiver like Mike Williams. Man, that was a great play by Mike Williams and the defensive back, Denzel Ward. He's a great cornerback. He was in great position. You just got to give that to the Chargers. They made a great play, and sometimes that's going to happen, but I don't think he could have been in any better position in that particular play.
Yeah, Denzel Ward's an excellent cover corner in the National Football League. Well, let me tell you what he doesn't do well, and that's what's highlighted on this film. He's pressing Mike Williams. Mike Williams is 6'4", 200 plus pounds. If you're pressing, you better jam him. You better not let him get a clean release, because he also runs 4'4". He's going to be able to get even with you. He's going to be able to now expose you. So if you're going to be a press corner, you better get hands on him. And that's how you screw up the timing. That's how you now throw things off, because if I am Justin Herbert, I'm just throwing it up. He's 6'4". Yes. So if you want to show press, you better be physical at the line of scrimmage, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I say the way we resolve that, PS2. Yeah. PS2. That's all you got to say, PS2.
PS2, baby. Well, lastly, Eckler, he isn't the only one making plays out of the backfield there for the Chargers. Their backup, Joshua Kelly, is very, very good. And like we saw in this 22-yard play, what was working so well for Herbert and Kelly here specifically?
Well, it was a couple one coverage, and really, you just got to play your coverage. And the guy on the outside, I believe, was the guy who had him in coverage, and he just let him run right by him, and he decided he's going to rush the passer. And when you do that, bad things happen. Just a simple pass to the flat, and hey, Joshua Kelly did his thing, and you got to play the defense. Play the defense. That's called simple responsibility. He didn't do it, and when you do that, you're going to pay the price.
Dirty eyes, right? I mean, that's what the Chargers do really well. They're going to have some full flow stuff, and that's why you saw earlier in the game where Austin Eckler is able to rip off that 71-yarder, because you're guessing, right? And it's full flow. I got to get over the top. I got to go over the top, because he's going to run the ball to the right in that situation. But what did the Chargers do really well? They come back later on. They give you that full flow, but now they sneak the running back, Joshua Kelly, out the front side and get him to the flat. So it's all about keying into your keys, following your responsibility, and not guessing. Ever has done a heck of a job of putting his players in a great position to succeed and to make plays, but you have to go out there and trust in the system. So if I'm Josie Jewell and I have the running back all the way, I'm not playing for the cutback. I'm saying, hey, I got to follow this running back, because he could either he has the handoff, or now he's sneaking out the front like we saw with Joshua Kelly, or if he does cut back the ball because he is running it, I'm going to trust that Caden Stearns or Justin Simmons or Kareem Jackson's going to go make that play. So it's really trusting your players that are around you. And that's what I love about football. And it's the ultimate team sport, right? You cannot go out there and just have success by yourself.
Can't do it.
Yeah, the Broncos pass rush, they are coming off a huge game against the Colts. Why is it so critical for them to have a similar performance this week against Justin Herbert?
Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, right? Justin Herbert could throw the heck out of that football. 7th in quarterback rating, right? QBR, right? So it's very important to be able to create pressure when you just send 4. The Chargers are down. They don't have their starting left tackle. Their center has been banged up. So you have to be able to take advantage of your one-on-one matchups. And oh, by the way, when you do send 5, you better get pressure and, when you get opportunities to hit Austin Eckler in the passing game because he has to sit in there and pick up the blitz, or you get an opportunity to put Justin Herbert on the ground. You got to take advantage of those opportunities, because those body blows is what affect the fourth quarter.
Steve, what's your number one key to victory this week?
Number one key to victory is offense, play to the whistle. And I would also say, got to get body on body. Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, big guys, Palmer, all big guys that, good run after the catch. Got to get body on body. I don't want to see another game like the Raiders game where guys are bouncing off of our defenders and getting extra yards. Once we hit a guy, we want him to go down within a couple of yards.
Pick a game plan, stick to it. A couple weeks ago, we heard Nathaniel Hackett talk about giving credit to Josh McDaniels. We don't give Josh McDaniels credit here in Broncos country. We don't give the Raiders credit here in Broncos country. I had to say it. I'm sorry, guys, but I don't want to see it. I just don't want to see it. But what he did say made a lot of sense. He credited Josh McDaniels on having a game plan and sticking to it. And that's what I want to see the Broncos do. Have a game plan, stick to it, where I see it in the first quarter all the way through the fourth quarter.
Well, that is all the time we have for Broncos Weekend, everyone. Be sure to join me Wednesday night for the full game recap on Broncos A to Z. For Steve Atwater and Big O, I'm Alexis Perry, and we will see you all next week.